Welcome to the FinTech Scaling Show. This podcast is sponsored by Scale Up Consulting, helping FinTech startups create a scalable organization to support an ever-increasing demand. When you're ready to grow, reach out to us at richard@scaleupconsulting.co. Now, over to the show with Richard Doherty, founder and host. Hello, FinTech leaders. Super excited today to have Myles on the show. Myles is CEO and co-founder of Globacap. Prior to setting up and launching Globacap, Myles has had a stellar career and held a number of senior positions across technology, consulting, and also in the banking world. So super stoked to have you on the show today. Welcome, Myles.
Thank you very much, Richard. Hi, everyone.
Awesome. Let's jump into it. And what I like to do at the start of all my shows is just give a bit of the inside track into the guest and who they are. So let's start there, right? And I guess what I'd like to know is, how did maybe the early part of your career help you become successful at Globacap?
Sure. So I would say that the early part of my career, I would say that starting Globacap and Globacap becoming, as we've got a long way to go, but as successful as we have to date, wouldn't have been possible without the career that I had before. And the reason for that is my background. Globacap actually exists to automate the flow of capital globally, from register management to private placement to secondary liquidity. We've digitized and automated processes throughout that whole journey, and that requires a very deep knowledge of capital markets and technology. My background was computer science originally, started working for an investment bank, Macquarie Bank, as a programmer, and then moved internally after a few years to equity research as a quant, and then spent the next decade or so in a few different roles in banking, from quantitative research through to trading, through to structured derivative structuring and also sales. I later then did some consulting for some stock exchange groups on pricing strategy, and then I actually went full circle back to tech in 2014 and joined a small startup in the UK called Colossus Bets as CTO, and helped grow that company to just over 30 B2B white labeled partners in the following 3 years, which led me to the point of seeing an opportunity where private markets just was lagging significantly from the rest of the world with respect to technology, and so started the business at that point in time.
Cool. And so you got a lot of market understanding, a lot of skills, and that's probably also a lot of soft skills you developed over sort of the former years in your career. And can you pinpoint maybe 2 or 3 skills, either soft skills, hard skills, technical skills, that have really helped you as you've gone down this path at Globacap?
Sure. So I being a technology business and a financial business, and we're a regulated firm by the FCA, being that intersection point, I think it wouldn't have been possible to start this without the programming background. Even though, I mean, I'm not a tiny piece of any of the developers that we have on our team today. But without that knowledge and that understanding, then I wouldn't be able to have seen the opportunity and also been part of the this company and leading it. That said, also the in-depth knowledge of capital markets, which for me really happened by chance, because I started off as a programmer for an investment bank, and they wanted all of their developers to have better knowledge of capital markets. So they actually paid for diploma at a graduate diploma at the Securities Institute. I was in Australia at the time, and that helped a lot. And then after a couple of years, I actually had the opportunity to move internally into equity research as a quant analyst, and that's really where I truly started learning about the ins and outs of how capital markets function, et cetera. So it was really just kind of a disjointed path, which ended up leading there. I think some of the softer skills probably, as with most people, I think don't really come into play until a little bit later in the career. And I certainly learned a lot in every role throughout the last 10 years, and have learned an incredible amount, just being at Globacap as well. Um, yeah, so happy to dive into that, or whatever is
And
best.
and what about, we talk about, you talk about, investment banking, consulting, also obviously using your technical skills at a point in time. You had a CTO role a few years back. Um, but these changes as you've gone through your career, and then finally coming and launching Globacap. How 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 has that changed you and your life as you've grown up along that path?
Sure. I think there's I think there's a couple of aspects there. One is, that there's actually, let me take a step back. Even before I did a Bachelor of Computer Science, I was always a bit of a nerd at school, and I was very much into computing, and doing stuff there. I was also into music, and I actually left school to study music, and did that for a year and a half, at the Conservatorium of Music in Western Australia, and realized actually that I'd never be completely fulfilled. I was studying jazz, and I'd never be completely fulfilled being a jazz musician. I loved it, but I wanted to do other stuff as well, and actually changed track to computer science degree, and then ended up working for an investment bank, and then ended up working in finance from a program. And so I think my biggest learning from that point in time is that there's no clear and cut pathway to do anything. There's lots of different ways to get to an end goal, and you just have to look at any opportunity that's there at the time and see what the best route for it is. Later on, I was at Morgan Stanley in London in structured derivatives. I left Morgan Stanley in 2011, and for the next couple of years, I actually tried to run my own quantitative trading strategy, which went really well for a year and a bit, and then started going really badly for a year, and I couldn't fix the strategies. And it was in that time I did some consulting work for those stock exchanges, etc. But at the end of that period, I had to make the decision that I couldn't fix those trading strategies. I had to shut it down. I was running out of cash, and I think that to me was, for all intents and purposes, it was a failed business, and the self-questioning that comes along with that, I think, is probably one of the largest single points in time of self-growth. Of kind of navigating through that, and being a failure, accepting that it was a failure, and over the ensuing months, kind of rebuilding self-confidence, and getting back into the world, and doing the next challenge.
And let's, if you don't mind, because it is interesting. A lot of guests come on the show, and they are open and honest around how they've learned. And a lot of times it is sort of trying something, and sometimes the first time, actually generally all the time, the first time it doesn't work, and they try again and try again and try again. So
Yeah.
how did you, I don't know, pump yourself up? Let's put it that way. How do you pump yourself up off the back of that business, and sort of take the lessons and rebuild your confidence to get out there and obviously go on to what you do now?
Yeah. It's not easy. There are, at that point in time, every fiber of my brain was basically kind of questioning my whole career to that point, and saying, wow, it was just random chance, and I was never any good at anything, and I'm a total failure, and everything else. So I think anyone in that situation has to go through a period of just letting that run its course, and that can take different amount of time in different people and different situations. But then it's a question of saying, okay, well, actually, in real terms, I'm still pretty young, and actually, I have done some cool stuff with my life, and there's so much more opportunity on the horizon. And it's about then looking forward at that future opportunity, and then saying, you know what, actually, I can do this, and I can take another step forward. And then I kind of got out and started having some conversations with people about, next steps in career and different sort of opportunities. And what I realized was that actually everyone else viewed that last couple of years of where I was running that trading business and trying to make that work, even though it failed, they were really interested in it and saw it as actually really good experience. And I realized at that point that actually failure is the best experience we can get. It would be so easy to be able to just look at everyone else's situations and learn from it, but I think in reality, most people, certainly myself, don't really learn something until I'm actually going through it.
Yeah, I hear you. Totally with you on that. And yeah, so you went through this this learning, which was great, and you came out, and you then launched obviously Globacap. But what was the things that took you by surprise, or that you weren't expecting as a CEO and co-founder of this new venture?
Sure. So I think, just for completeness of the story timeline, from that failing, I actually went to Colossus Bet's CTO, and then started, and that didn't really have a tech team at that point, and I really sort of built that tech team, and that was a big learning, because that tech team grew, and the company grew, and I hadn't managed that many people before, so I learned quite a lot then about finding the right people. And I think I was a bit naive at times about how simple that would be, having come from a banking background where everybody is already, pre-vetted before they get in. So you're just dealing with very smart people all the time. So to then shift and probably, sometimes maybe not take the interviewing process as thorough enough. I think I learned a lot there. Coming into Colossus, I think that evolved, and I'd say that, coming into Globacap, that evolved, and my biggest learning throughout the company, there's been a lot, but throughout the last 3.5 years of Globacap, my biggest learning is the most critical factor, as I see it. I mean, there are a lot of critical factors, but the most critical factor, as I see it, is to have the right people in the right seats at the right time. You can have the right people, but they can be in the wrong seats. That's not going to work. You can have the right people in the right seats doing the right thing for the business at the wrong point of either the business or that person's career. And it could be, a superstar who is really good at one stage of business, but as the business evolves and grows, actually even the same role completely changes in its nature. And so having the right people that's suited for that point in time that the business is at, in that right seat, is the most critical thing. And I think, what will make or break our business is the people, it's the team. And so having that right has absolutely been my biggest learning.
And how does that play out? I'm wondering, as you founded a business, you get some people in that maybe are entrepreneurial and want to also help, but at a point in time you have to step that up to maybe more management type people that allow you to divide and conquer. So I guess my question is, how have you evolved the people side of your business as you've grown up?
That's a good question. So that's it's a lot of trial and error, honestly. We've had great people who haven't stayed with the business and haven't been right at that right point in time, and that's a learning experience. And it's not because they're necessarily not good people. It's because they just weren't right for that particular seat at that point in time. And that is just something that I think, I don't know, I think I've read that before, but I didn't really understand it until actually going through it. It's just one of those things where you just have to kind of learn. So, we went through, I think I'm really happy that we've got just an incredible team now. And to get to that point has been absolutely a trial and error learning place. And I think we're getting better now at seeing exactly what it is that we need. I think that the majority of time when someone doesn't work out in a role, it's because the company that's hiring wasn't quite sure of exactly what they needed and what they wanted in the first place.
Mm.
And so they end up hiring someone without being completely specific about exactly what it is they're looking for. And that's a recipe for disaster, because, that might be a great person, but again, they're either going to be in the slightly wrong seat for them or slightly the wrong point in time for them. And so I think part of that has been a reflection on ourselves of actually figuring out exactly what it is that we need and what type of person that we need and what type of experience we need to fill that current need that can help us get to the next stage. And to add to that, when it hasn't worked, I've also learned that transparency is the greatest mechanism to getting things to work. And that can either be, look, actually on reflection, this is the situation, this is what we need, this is how you currently fit in, and this is why it's not currently working. And that can either be then a case where the person can adapt and adjust, and it could work, or it can be that both parties say, well, actually, that's not, the person says that's not really what I want, and there's a change. But either way, I think having that transparency and giving that person an opportunity to decide for themselves, I think is something that's really important, and has helped us in a couple of situations get people then either into the right seats, or has resulted in leaving on in an amicable way.
Yeah. It's good. It's good philosophy, I believe. And you mentioned it's making certain that you have a good process that gets at least front run some of the questions and validates the people that are coming into the business. And I mean, I don't want to get into the technical details, but how at the highest level, how are you as a founder and a CEO making certain that each and every person that is coming in to the business tomorrow, the next day, etc., is firstly aligned to your mission, and secondly has the right maybe skills, and when I say skills, soft skills, hard skills, etc., to do the job and help you guys on your mission.
Sure. I think that, and this has been a learning experience as well, I think that comes in a few different pillars, let's say. One is ensuring that our values are really clear as to who we are and what we embody, and making sure that's really obvious to the person that's applying for the job in the first place, but also comes through in the interview process, and they can really see what it is they're signing up for. And the people interviewing that person can also have in their mind what it is they're looking for. And so one of the ways we do that, I think there's a few ways that we try to do that, and we're continually trying to get better at it. But I think one of the ways is, we have the quarterly value awards internally. So we have our values. Anyone can nominate anyone else within the company that really has done something that really embodies those values. And at the end of the quarter, that those people get announced, and the person that scored the best gets announced for each value, and they get a prize. And so that's just something, I think, just one way of several that we're really trying to, make sure everybody really lives and breathes what those values are. And that helps to have that alignment at the beginning. Second is, I think, what I mentioned before, which is about being really clear as to exactly what it is that we're recruiting for. So, I think the biggest misalignment comes in when someone says, oh, we need a new product manager, let's say. Okay, fine, but exactly what is that product manager going to be managing? Exactly what's their, what size team are they going to do? Like, how much management versus product design are they going to be doing? Like, there's everything there that needs to be looked at, and when with the product that they're managing, what exactly is their background that we need them to do, and to fill that role. And also, where does the pathway go going forward? So does that person have the growth that they're looking for, and can stay engaged and excited in the role? Having all that defined clearly up front, before the recruiting process starts, I think is a big factor as well.
And on that point, I guess as you're going through the cycle, you're also wanting to show, but show your potential new recruits, what you guys are up to, and actually, as I said before, your mission, but also what problem you actually solving in the market, and how your solution allows your potential customers to solve their problems and rise up and move to a better place in their ideal scene. So what I'd like to know is, from a Globacap perspective, what are you guys what is your solution? I think it's the better way to answer it.
Yep.
Ask it. What is your solution solving? What does it bring into the market?
Sure. So private markets, from capital raising to administrating that capital and investors through to accessing secondary liquidity, has essentially been complicated and cumbersome.
Yeah.
We've changed that. We have digitized and automated all of it with the express purpose of increasing efficiency and reducing risk for our clients. So our tech doesn't just keep things in order, it fundamentally changes the way that businesses interact. And there are few times in human history when, in my view, when a new technology has made or has the capacity to make such an evolutionary change to mankind. And I know that sounds huge for private capital markets that not many people know about or care about, but the reality is that private capital markets are valued in the trillions of dollars, and private companies employ over 50% of the world's workforce. So despite that, how businesses raise capital and find capital and access capital, and how they manage their investors and then the securities registers, and how those investors then access liquidity, are all in the tech dark ages. It's madness. Technology has revolutionized so many aspects of our daily lives. It's time for private capital markets to catch up. And coming back to how we keep our people aligned to our mission, that's our mission, and that's our goal. And it's something so big and has such great ramifications that I think people that are with us can see that, and they're excited by that, and they're excited by the future.
And you mentioned that it's we're in the dark ages. This is new. It's disrupting, and maybe not a lot of people know about this space. So I guess it will be interesting to understand how you, as a founder and CEO, and also your other team members or executive teams, are helping communicate the message to your customers in the market, and make certain that they are aware that you're here to solve a problem, and it's a good thing.
Sure. So we're focused very much on our target demographic right now, and communicating that outward to that demographic, which is, we have clients all over the world now, but we're focused very much on growth in the UK and Western Europe, and companies that are themselves Series A, Series B, Series C type of stage.
Yeah.
And we're still relatively early in our own journey, so we're focused that message and getting it out to that audience. We're what we're doing is different, and what we're doing is a different way of actually viewing private capital and the management of it, and access to it, and so on. And so we're really targeting those companies that are a little bit more forward-thinking themselves, and are generally early adopters of new other technology. That said, I have to recognize that we now have $10 billion of private shares and debt instruments managed on our platform, for 80 companies and 5,000 shareholders. So I guess we're still early, but I have to recognize the progress that we've made, and that we are we're on a good track, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty impressive. And are you using digital channels? Is it a case of linking up with your target audience on LinkedIn, these social channels right now,
Yep.
or is it a bit of a mixture of both?
It's all digital. So it's LinkedIn is the primary social type network that we use
Yeah,
to get that message out there. But really, a lot of it, the bulk actually comes from Google, from organic search,
yeah,
as well as some paid search. Our marketing campaigns and our content that we're delivering to that audience is very much focused on the early adopters
yeah,
that are open to that to a new way of doing things, and we're having some success there right now, and gradually that will change and the message will go wider as we grow further. But it really does come down to those digital channels right now. We don't have we're not taking the approach of building a massive sales team that just does cold calling. I think that's something which I view in the dark ages as well. I mean, we're a tech
yeah.
business, so
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think you're completely right. I mean, we had another guest on the show a few weeks ago, and he mentioned pretty much exactly the same as you. And he mentioned, I don't know if you know, Gary V. He's like, I'm taking Gary V's approach. I want to be Gary V. I want to, send, I want to disrupt the market and show them that content, as you mentioned, content based marketing or
mm,
content based marketing can be done, and it is a good mechanism to create demand and also get our message there and make certain that people are aware of us. So it sounds like you guys are doing the same.
yeah, exactly. And an example of that is we just put out a piece of content on Series B fundraising pitfalls, and some of our audience are Series B companies who are going to do a Series B, so it was really targeted at that specific niche,
Yeah.
and just looking at some of the trends, some of the statistics around Series B, how much capital there is generally available at Series A level versus Series B versus Series C, and some of those more quantitative
Yeah.
points, as well as just some of the more qualitative aspects of the problems that companies tend to face in that round. So we are trying to get the message out there via content that's actually interesting
Yeah.
to that audience as well.
Because it is. Content is all about value, right? I mean, if you just send it, which
Yeah.
some do, and good luck to them. People want value, and people want to learn. I mean, they might not buy from you straight away, but they can see you there as the expert or the thought leader.
Mm.
So yeah, I guess as you guys work through that process, I mean, what are you doing to consistently up the ante on content and also on your product, so you continuously looked at as the expert and the thought leader in the space?
Yeah. Okay. So, you know what? It comes down to, I think there's a couple of things. I mean, first off, personally, I hate content and seeing content elsewhere that's just kind of a bit wishy-washy. I
Yeah,
really like detailed content, and that, I guess that's more my personality. But I like stuff that actually tells me stuff that I didn't know before.
yeah,
So we try to do that content in a way that actually does
yeah,
share value, as you said.
yeah,
Um, but ultimately, I think it comes down to just having an amazing team, and that's something that was, as we discussed earlier,
yeah,
is it's trial and error, and we got there, and we've learned a lot in that process. But ultimately, we've got an amazing marketing team now, and we have a superstar chief product officer, who I think we got lucky, and in hiring these people, and as much as I'd love to, I can't take the credit for that. At the time, for example, our chief product officer, at the time we hired him, he was a little bit more junior, but he really stepped up into the role, and he's just exceptional. And our head of marketing, and our chief revenue officer both have just had great experience in both cases. This was the chance to jump in and take on more responsibility and a little bit in some cases and more in another, and they've just stepped up and they're just fantastic. And so, building then teams around these people, and having great people within those teams, I think is the key point. I'm honestly, I've just got to say, I'm really lucky. I feel lucky to be working with such incredible people.
Awesome, man. Kudos to them, right? And as you move forward and as you start sketching out maybe some things on your whiteboard, or your virtual whiteboard, I guess nowadays, what is currently there right now that wasn't there 30 days ago?
Yeah, on the whiteboard, we actually, pre-COVID, on a slight tangent before I answer your question, pre-COVID, we had a slightly bigger office in central London.
Yeah.
Lockdown came. We actually made the decision a few months in to post-COVID remain a predominantly remote working organization, even once COVID had cleared up and everything was fine.
Yeah.
So at that point, that freed us to do a couple of things. Number one, it freed us to start recruiting people from not just in London, but everywhere. UK is also around Europe and stuff as well, which expanded the pool of talent, which is great. But secondly, we downsized our office. So we saved a ton of money on office space. We still have an office. It's a smaller office, but it's a place that people can still go into and meet regularly and stuff.
Yeah.
But the point of why I'm telling you this is because we had a couple of huge whiteboards on the wall in our old office. They don't fit in the new office anymore. So yeah, the old whiteboard is well and truly done. All virtual now. So on our virtual whiteboard, I think what's new on there. We've got some great opportunities that have just kind of come in with some prospective clients, which are really exciting. I can't talk too much about it, but just at a high level, that's great. I think some initiatives that have continually been there, which we are just always trying to get better at, is our people, and making sure our people are not just the right people, but they're really engaged and they're really like part of the journey. So that's always a continual learning experience. Making sure our existing customers are super happy, and we've just started actually an initiative whereby we've essentially got a collective of some of those core initial customers that really form a feedback kind of advisory council about our product and everything. So it helps us to deliver better service to them. It helps them to be even more bought into us and our product and our journey. So making sure those existing customers are really happy and engaged. Our marketing strategy, as you touched on, super important. Obviously, we've made some good progress, but we're still relatively early in our journey, so we've got a long way to go. And so ensuring that we still are always at the right, on the right track is super important. And I guess just continuing to reflect on our product and on the market, and checking that we have the best product that we can, and we're delivering it in the right way to the right people.
Awesome. Sounds like some good stuff. But I do want to dive into what you mentioned around moving from a big office to a remote office, and maybe get some insights in that, because I know a lot of people maybe they're listening have been through that, or going through that, or thinking of going through that. So I guess the first question was, why did you guys, tell me more about it. Why did you guys decide to, downsize and go remote initially? What was the big push on that?
I think the big push came from just realizing that it worked. So we went fully remote, I think right on the very, very beginning of March last year, which was slightly earlier than the government officially pushed everybody to do. And so we saw that, within 2 months, by end of April, we actually saw it was working, and it was working really well. And I think the clincher for me was, one of our co-founders, Alex, is a great guy. He's as far end of the extroversion scale as you can get. Awesome guy, but he needs human contact, and he'll be happy to say that himself. And so for him, at the first, it was a big shock. I'm naturally more introverted, so for me, it works. It wasn't such a big shock, but for Alex, it was a big shock. But actually, within 2 months, he actually said, "You know what? Actually, it's better," because he was still getting. We still have, thanks to Teams, Zoom, everything else. It works. We can still get kind of person contact and have chats and everything. But he was actually getting, realizing he had more time to just focus on getting stuff done. And I think that was the same for everybody. And that was a really good reflection, because we realized, okay, well, actually, if this really does work, then there's some big advantages to going fully remote, which is that, number one, we save a huge amount of office expense. But number two, it like I said, it widens up the recruiting pool, where we can just recruit from almost anywhere now. And that's great. Now, that said, there are some pitfalls as well that we've seen. And those are, we use Microsoft Teams, and these days, Teams versus Slack versus anything else it's broadly similar. But it's very easy for there just to be, it really requires good organization, because it's easy for stuff to just get lost in so many messages. So there's that. I think it requires a good amount of, ensuring that weekly one-on-ones happen with everybody, that weekly team meetings really, or daily or whatever, really happen. And everybody has the opportunity to have a voice, which is easier when we're all in the office together, a little bit harder when we're remote. So we have to put a little bit more emphasis on that. The other element as well is, it's fine for me and for Alex and for other senior people in the company who are a bit older, and we've got our lives. We're not looking to go out to a bar and meet people and socialize a bit more. Whereas for some of the younger people in the company, they really do want that social interaction and meeting up for a drink and stuff like that. So that obviously was not really possible for parts of lockdown, but now that it's started to ease a little bit, we've really started to promote some of those social activities. And we do some social stuff online. So actually this evening we have a wine tasting, where everybody's been sent out a little wine tasting pack, and the people that are hosting it, it's all over Zoom. And so for that, that's great. So that's a little bit of social interaction. But then also, now that people were able to go into the office, we had a couple of, very specific days where a few of the different teams actually went all into the office together, for anybody that was able to travel there, and spent the day together, and then went out for lunch or went out for drinks. And that having that regular face-to-face interaction is still important. I don't think you can take it away completely. It still needs to happen every so often. But I think it as long as it's managed well, so that everybody has the ability to have their voice, we have a good structure of communication, so that people don't feel lost in it. And we have a good team dynamic where people can feel free to contact each other when they need to remotely. Then we are remote for the vast majority of the time. We just come together occasionally.
Is this the way of the future?
Yeah, it is. I think it'll take a while to adapt for everybody, but it absolutely is.
Yeah, cool. I mean, you guys sound like you have a nice setup there, and congrats on making the shift over and going fully remote. And as you guys move forward and start looking at maybe the next year, or let's say the next year or so, the next 12 months, what are you, as I'm going to say a founder, a co-founder, what factors are you considering as you move forward?
Personally, or for the business?
Let's do personally. Actually, personally, as a co-founder of a business, what are you looking at over the next 12 months? Sure.
I guess something that I reflect on every day is, what do our most important factor of success is our team. We have, there's no way I can do the job that half the people in the company do. And there's no the way that one person or two people or three people or five people or even 10 people can make this company a success. In the long run, we need a team. We need a team where it's just a collection of great people that work really well together and can achieve some great stuff. And something that I try to reflect on every day is, what do I need to improve in myself to help that team to do the best they can, and to give them the tools that they need to be able to do the job successfully. And that can come down to ensuring that communication is right, and that people are aware of everything that's going on where they need to be, and are engaged and fully. Also really important that they see the longer term picture in the direction that we're traveling in, because that empowers them to make the best decisions in the short term that they need to do in order for our whole company to be a success. And I think that's really important. So and I don't have the answers. So I think that's something that is still learning and reflecting on continually. Yeah.
And still learning, continuous learning is a common thread in a lot of my shows as leaders and entrepreneurs. You always wanting to learn more. So on that note, are you reading a book, maybe listening to a podcast, following a YouTube channel, and you think, yeah, that's some good learnings that the listeners would like to or should pick up and take a read or listen?
Yeah, sure. So I recently finished a book called The Great Game of Business by Jack Stack. And the reason why that book was really good and insightful was because essentially that Jack Stack was instrumental in a company where it was going bankrupt. The employees essentially bought it out, and it was a manufacturing plant, highly competitive business. They turned it into one of the most profitable companies of all time, and the greatest growth story is really incredible. And the way that they did that was by truly engaging their employees. And what I mean by that is, they realized that some of their employees who were just manufacturing engines actually were buying property on the side and renovating it and leasing it out, and they had other skills that they could contribute. And so they gave them the platform by which all of their employees could contribute in the way that that actually makes a difference, and fully understood the numbers of the business, fully understood the financials, and understood how their contribution affected those financials, which is super important. I can see after reading that book why that's so important. Secondly, he talks a lot about gamification. He made, in order to really drive engagement, he actually made a lot of the goals that they were trying to achieve as a business gamified, and that drove greater engagement in the throughout the company. So and it gave them a better chance of succeeding in those goals. So definitely recommend that book. Great Game of Business. Another one, totally off topic, or different topic rather, which I'm reading right now is a book called Never Split the Difference. Negotiate as if your life depended on it, by Chris Voss.
I feel like that was planned.
Yeah, it's here.
Yeah.
Chris Voss is he's a former FBI hostage negotiator, and he talks about the tactics, very strategic tactics, which go into hostage negotiation situations and how they negotiate, and how they're very high level strategic types of tactics that can really be applied to anything. So I just find it really interesting, and some of the viewers might, I don't know.
Awesome, definitely. I mean, those are two books. I think, to be honest with you, I'm going to pick up and get on my Amazon account today. So awesome. Thanks for sharing that, and also thanks for the insights today. It's been a really cool show. I really enjoyed jumping into different parts of obviously your experience, and also some insights as to what it takes to really scale up a fintech. So, mate, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you very much, Richard. And thanks for everyone for tuning in. Yeah,
And
pleasure. Thank you.
before we jump off, how can everyone, if they want to, get in touch with you guys? What is the best mechanism?
Sure. I guess our website globacap.com is the best to find out more information. But if there are any CEOs or founders of businesses that are listening in that just want to make contact, talk through any points, feel free to look me up on LinkedIn, or just email me at Myles MYLES at globacap.com. Happy to have a chat. I think it's important that we're all super busy, but at the same time, I think it's important that expanding contact network and helping each other along the way throughout this
Yeah.
journey is also beneficial for everybody. So happy to make that contact.
Awesome. Yeah, totally agree with you there. So, again, thanks for coming on. It's been an awesome show. I loved it. Loved it to bits, and looking forward to watching you guys scale up and really make a big impact, because I think you're on your way to doing that. So awesome stuff.
Great. Thank you very much, Richard.